What's up, guys? It's a guy, Noober Schnoober, and today I'm going to teach you losers how to get into and maintain relationships. However, unfortunately for me, I'm not being paid the big bucks here. But if anything, this makes me a little bit more reputable since I have no gain or online class of how to get that meow meow in one night. This isn't a problem though, because at the same time, I feel like this information needs to come out. It's either people who get into a lot of relationships or people who don't get into them at all. And this is just for those people who want to get into them and slash or keep them. Alright, tip number one, how to get into them. I'm going to split this one into two categories since they can both fit the how do you meet somebody and how to get into one. So let's start off with the first one. For girls, this is easy. Don't do or say anything gross, and you're all clear to at least make a friend. But for guys who like Transformers, have anxiety, or straight up just autistic, this is your worst nightmare. But one tip genuinely impresses a lot of girls, but this is like the hardest to do. Don't be weird. Mom always said to be who you are and people will like you, but women don't know the struggle to talking to a woman as a man. This requires so many things. Once you have it, you have it. However, those things include being capable of conversation, social cues, and adaptability to who you're talking to, which also has their own categories that go into them. I've gotten so many relationships and hookup opportunities literally handed to me solely because I'm not nervous when talking to girls. So, this brings up the question of how you meet somebody. Easy. I don't know how this will sound 10 years down the line, but for teens now, you got Instagram. Of course, in person, or some random person you want to talk to. And if you can't do any of those, put on a helmet and grow some balls. For adults, you have a variety of dating apps. Going out to the bar, same thing as just someone random. Just make sure they're not a minor. And somehow, especially for white people, doing nefarious activities such as wine tasting and going to the dog park. Once again, though, if you're so socially awkward that you can't talk to people online or in person, that is simply just natural selection. Put yourself out there, but don't do a crime or get put on some random girl's Snapchat story doing it. And as much as pressure makes diamonds, don't overcompensate it for ego. You need some to a degree, and it especially helps if you know who you are. But if you want a broader range of people, you need to be modest. Okay, the second part is easier to explain. Getting into relationships is easy. I could do it in 1 to 2 weeks. Getting into good relationships is harder. So it really just depends what you're looking for. And if you don't know what you're looking for, then seriously be honest with yourself with what you want. Would you want to be happy with a pretty girl or an ugly girl? Wrong question. Ask yourself, do you just want to have fun? Want to experience, like to just test out a relationship? Or go for something that could last? If you don't know the answer to that, then you're not ready for one. Knowing yourself is an extremely important thing to keep out of bad relationships, but it doesn't guarantee good ones. Just stops you from continuing on to something that you don't want. So, how do you get into one? Start doing things more with each other, like going out more, playing games together, or simply just calling. But there's a time limit to things as always. If you've been friends for a long time, I find that there's less of a chance of something happening because of the whole I value our friendship, blah, blah, blah. So it comes down to being honest with yourself for people who've been in a long term friendship with this other person. Are you fine being friends? Or are you waiting for an opportunity to have something with them? I have no answer with the whole being friends part, but if you feel like you value a relationship aspect more than a friendship one, you have to distance yourself at first for a little bit, then start asking to do more things with them that you wouldn't usually do. Like my favorite first date that could be disguised as hanging out is to go later during the day Grab something that you can walk and drink with, and just hanging out and talking about life with aspirations or whatever at some park or hill or just somewhere scenic. The time to ask will come naturally. And it's hard to say it at first. But you got this, brother. Be happy. Alright, finally to tip number 2, how to maintain a relationship. It's exactly like the last one. It's easy to keep a relationship, but it's difficult to find and keep a great relationship. Someone might not be enthusiastic anymore once the honeymoon phase ends, because that's when boundaries and way of life start to take the place most. To this, you have to be able to communicate. You can't just expect someone to change entirely just for you. And if you do, then you need to compensate or guide them through it. This applies to things like anxiety, some mental disorder, or really anything that affects the relationship coinciding with that thing that we discussed earlier, what you want in a relationship. People work differently every time, and there are things that you guys might not want in a relationship. All of you, since this applies to poly and open relationships, need to talk about what you want. You and your partners should all know what each other needs and if they want to work on something. Love is not a guessing game, so don't make someone guess for what you want. Grow the fuck up and tell them. Lastly, now is tips number 3. This one is about tips that help you understand things a lot better. Sub tip number 1. If you're on dating apps, don't get discouraged. Real women don't just not respond. I typically want to avoid them since how it negatively affects my self image purely because people will just stop talking to me out of nowhere. Dry text me or like text me 6 to 3 days later. Sub tip number 2. Even if you're ugly, aim for the stars. Genuinely. Have you ever seen SS Sniper Wolf's ex husband? The only reason that loser fumbled was because he cheated. And me personally, I find that it's rare, but sometimes it works out. So many people are like, wow, it makes me nervous. But it's like, do you want to settle for uglier people? Do you find uglier people more attractive? I mean, you do, you pal, but me personally, I want to be proud of the person that I'm with for one reason or another. Sub-tip number 3. Phoebe Bridgers is one of the biggest red flags that I've ever seen. If the person you like listens to her, just know that you're not going to be happy. Sub-tip number 4. Be ready for these 3 lines. I'm not ready for a relationship. There's no future. Or, you're too good. I don't deserve you. The first one means she doesn't want a relationship with you in particular. I've genuinely noticed that they get into a relationship like 2 weeks or under. Second is unexplainable, and that's the whole point. They don't know how to tell you that they just don't want to be with you. And lastly, third can mean two things. That they're looking for a reason to break up for you with whatever reason, but they can't find an actual reason to go along with it, or they're using emotions for your validation. Either way, you shouldn't chase this person down, which kind of leads into sub tip number 5. If someone uses the word goodbye, let them leave and say that you respect their decision and stick to it. Because some people get hostile when you don't beg for them to come back after they already said goodbye. A lot of the time, that person will say goodbye in the moment after an argument or something, and they don't mean it. And even if they do, be respectful and let them come to their own decisions. Finally, tip number 6. Experiment, especially when you're young. Get a grip of what you want, and if things don't work out, they don't work out. That's life. And other people, I don't even know why I'm doing this accent, and other people as well as you have the free will to move on to other things or to work on things. Making mistakes are a part of the process, and they help you realize who you are and what you want. Acknowledge those mistakes and work on them. As much as you want a good partner, so does everybody else. Things can only get better when you work on them. Anyways, this has been Noober Schnoober. TLDR, don't be weird, get yourself out there, and I will see you guys later.